With my project, I am arguing that the redesign of urban public spaces can rejuvenate communities and promote social and ecological justice by reconnecting people to the water they drink, bathe in, and release their waste into. The intention of my work is to highlight the beauty and mystery of the water in the city of Providence and bring attention to the issues surrounding it. I do so through the redesign of an urban corridor connecting and filtering both water and people, as well as the creation of a public bathhouse along the shore of the most polluted water body in the city. Water. It ebbs and flows. It moves over and under, around and through, in trickles, waves, and rushes, moving underground and above ground in streams, sewage pipes, lakes, and out to the sea. Water evaporates from one place of rest and condenses down in another. It carries some substances and allows others to sink to its depths. Water holds many and is held by many. Both the absence of water and full saturations of it emphasize the contours of our landscape, as well as the contoured injustices of our human community. Our earth is sodden with water, our bodies bubbling with it. My mind floats with its familiarity and fizzles with its mysteries. I'd like to challenge the societal acceptance that we shouldn't be able to drink the water in our cities, bathe in our cities' waterways, or consume animals and plants living or growing in and or around our city's water. So what if we could? What if our bodies could safely contain the water around us, and the water around us could safely contain our bodies, even in a dense, dirty city? The answer to that question begins with another. How have we reached the point that we can no longer do these things where we live, here in Providence? Before Roger Williams settled his folks in the area, the Narragansetts and Nimicots were busy living their lives in a kind of symbiosis with the water. They shared what drinking water and fish they needed to survive and thrive, and respected the seasons so as not to deplete those resources. After 1636, however, the water and its shore became property, something to own. Narragansett Bay was even the site of a few battles in the Revolutionary War, as the water and the land around it became objects worth spilling blood over. Slater Mill and other industrial mills capitalized on the power of water to run their machinery. Then tourism boomed, and the waterfront became a place for the elite to visit and for the entrepreneurial to exploit. Growing drinking water and sewage demands led to the creation of the Fields Point Wastewater Treatment Facility in 1901, and the drowning of a valley community in 1925 to construct the Scituate Reservoir. I view all of this history through a lens of commodification. Water in Providence has been commoditized for the attainment of capital. Even today, with waterfire, boating clubs, kayaking, and bike paths, these activities are somewhat exclusive to those who fit in certain socioeconomic categories. Our need for water to live, and the simple joy we take in it, are put at risk when we begin overusing it for purposes beyond that. We want and need the intimacy of water, but we demand too much of its power. This has led to the pollution of Providence's waterways and the exclusion of certain populations to their shores and resources. Although industry-related water pollution has been largely remediated, Providence's surface water has had notable issues with algal blooms, fish kills, and shellfish closures due to high fecal coliform levels. This comparison of Fields Point to natural filtration systems in forested wetlands makes one thing clear, that the $360 million spent on a new overflow tunnel, the growing $90 million yearly budget, and the high energy usage of the facility are by all means unsustainable, especially because it still doesn't manage to handle all of the sewage properly. The Army Corps of Engineers claims that forested wetlands can actually filter water at approximately 1/7 the cost of conventional systems, and at zero the cost of energy usage. There is, admittedly, a whole lot of water coming into the city. The main issue in Providence is the high amount of stormwater runoff. Several times a year, the rainfall is enough to overload the sewage system. Even small pockets of alternative landscaping can provide relief, even if all they do is soak up some of the water on its hurried way. There are many ways in which we can make the usage of our water more efficient, more sustainable, and more natural. But we, humans, animals, and plants, can also connect to that water beyond its utilitarian function, coexist with it in a deeper, more meaningful, perhaps spiritual way, or at least in an intimately fun way before it leaves our presence again. In Providence, there are many different neighborhoods of greatly varying income level. In this diagram, the higher the poverty rate, the more opaque the neighborhood fill is, with green, of course, as the larger park spaces. Regrettably, especially in lower income areas, where there is a lack of money to upkeep the spaces, the parks meant to beautify and rejuvenate become objects of neglect, and are viewed by their neighborhoods as dark, potentially dangerous places to be, making them act as walls between neighborhoods. I believe that the static nature of the typical urban green space is at fault for this, and that they would be much more successful as gathering spaces if they were also spaces for free movement through each neighborhood and through the city. To begin, I have chosen to create green corridors along the already existing axes of public transport. Movement means access, and access means greater justice for the people of all communities, no matter their income level. I also imagine the waterways of Providence as natural and constructed avenues for movement and gathering of both humans and all other species. The waterways would be connected to each other through a series of minor corridors along particular streets and occupying empty lots and other spaces. The green will be more than just pretty, it will also function as edible landscapes, wetlands, or urban forest, with the added benefits of food desert relief, flooding prevention, and the bioremediation of water. To better understand these corridors and their programs, I studied a particular corridor that branches from the Jewelry District to the Mushpug Pond. I chose this corridor for two reasons. First, it happens to be the best biking route from my house to Mushpug Pond. More importantly, it connects two very different neighborhoods of the city and two similarly polluted bodies of water. Providence has more surface parking lots than Houston, Texas. In other words, a lot. To me, these represent a culture of socially and environmentally detrimental transport. They are also unnecessarily impermeable surfaces in a city with a major runoff problem. This is compounded by the high number of other abandoned paved lots and brownfields in this city. In my imagined world, such lots become potential sites for water filtration, groundwater replenishment, bioremediation, and recreational, social, and spiritual connection to water. Every program along the corridor is free and open to the public. Some of these interventions are informal and created by individuals, occupying alleyways and other small spaces, focusing on collecting small amounts of rainwater for the purposes of urban gardening and homemade aquaponics systems. Others are more large-scale, such as this water play park. Taking over an abandoned gas station, this program would also utilize rainwater, storing it to take advantage of its potential for recreation before filtering it safely back into the earth. Still others are education and experimentation based, like this ecology center neighboring Alvarez High School, on the site previously occupied by the Gorham Silver Factory, the main contributor to Mushpug Pond's heavy metal toxication. The site would utilize phytoremediation to phase out the heavy metals, and the lab library greenhouse center would carry out and study the remediation process, bringing the high school students and other community members into the ecological experience. Finally, we come to the spiritual bathhouse, the healing aspect of water engagement. I chose Mushpug Pond as the bathhouse site due to its problems with heavy metals and high fecal coliform counts, but also because of its lack of public access. I'd like to show you a short clip from a movie I made to document the invisibility of the water.
told me, you know, he had one deaf ear, back from his minesweeping days. You never could tell just what he could and could not hear, and he intended to keep it that way.
That final view of the water is from the site I chose for the bathhouse, where a non-denominational group congregates under the name Deliverance Temple. I kept the existing building's footprint and general site topography, allowing the runoff from the street to be directed towards the building and its accompanying designed wetlands below. This section shows the design of the corridor road itself, with increased access through the addition of a tram and bike lanes. The bike lanes and pedestrian walkways will be permeable surfaces, allowing the water moving down along the road to be swept to the side and sink into the earth. Any permeable sites like mine will become major sponges for this runoff. The bathhouse is constructed from an outer wall of brick, layered internally with a portal timber frame, with an earthen topography and pool below and a small chapel above. The south-facing surface becomes a tram wall to bring any available heat into the water below, making it a space for enjoyment of the water in the wintertime as well as the rest of the year. Of course, eventually the careful attention to the ecology of the pond will allow for people to swim and fish in the water body itself. Finally, this collage of collages explains the movement of water through the site, as the roof collects the rain, either allowing it through the operable skylight windows straight into the bathhouse pool itself, or collecting it within the aquifer below. This becomes the supply of water for the small blessing pool in the chapel, as well as for any gray water used in the building, specifically for the bathrooms, which incidentally have the best view. The wastewater from the toilets is composted and utilized in the neighboring garden, thus finally allowing the rain to reach the earth. In this bathhouse, waste becomes nourishment, stormwater becomes holy water, strangers become neighbors, and objects of neglect become objects of celebration. Thank you.